Welcome to the Char Holistic Health Show. Last session we talked about the neurotransmitters and how important it is for your behavior and it's for your functions in your body. Today we're going to talk and follow the series. We're going to be talking about the acetylcholine in the brain as well as the GABA. Now, last month we showed on the show the dopamine and the serotonin. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is acetylcholine and what are the characteristics of acetylcholine. We're talking about the main symptoms that you can get from acetylcholine, which are neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitters in the brain is very important. Now more and more focus has been placed on the neurotransmitters. So what does a neurotransmitter do? Well, it can govern your behavior again. It can control the functions of your body, autonomic nervous system, and it can also affect the organs itself. So the first thing, acetylcholine. The title is for brain memory. People know it for brain memory. The drugs that's used for Alzheimer's, they use acetylcholine, and they call it brief ACH. Now ACH is the abbreviation for acetylcholine, which we recognize it as. So when you see the symbol ACH, you know it's acetylcholine. And we're going to talk about the main symptoms inside the brain. Some of these can affect the cognitive functions, being aware, being able to recognize people. The memory loss, very common. People get short-term memory, long-term memory. It's usually the acetylcholine in the brain. And when people say, you know, we have a little thing we say at our seminars, and we says, how many people have gone to the next room and forgot why they went there? And everybody laughs, okay? And they say, well, short-term memory. And some people say, well, getting old. And other people will say, well, you know, it's in my family. Everybody gets short-term memory. But it's not necessarily means you're getting old or it's in your family. It's being that you are lacking certain acetylcholine neurotransmitters in the brain. In other words, you are lacking a support. So you don't have enough support. So when you're stressed, it will connect with the acetylcholine, and the acetylcholine doesn't have enough, what we call that substance between, we call synapse, between one nerve receptor to another, and you get a response or symptom of acetylcholine. Just like going to fill your gas tank up, and you're half a tank, and you have to go on a long journey, say from here in Kaimoki to, say, the leeward side, and there was a lot of traffic, and your tank was, say, less than half. And then as soon as you get to the midsection, all of a sudden you notice that your tank is quarter tank. And then you're getting kind of worried because you're wondering whether you're going to meet your destination without running out of gas. And you went on a lonely road and there was no gas station. Your body goes into a hypertensive stage. So it's no different than when you have acetylcholine, all the other neurotransmitters, and they tend to be having a short supply, short support. And when you go ahead and call them up, your body's going into stress and distress because it doesn't have enough support. So now, what are main symptoms? Again, concentration is another one. People have lack of concentration, and they say, well, why is it? You look towards acetylcholine shortage. Focus and high order thought processing. So that's another one. Another one could be the calculation. So you have problems with calculation, left brain. Okay? And innovation. You don't have innovation. You're sort of laid back. You're more passive. So, and the biggest thing is Alzheimer's disease. Okay? So that's inside the brain. Now outside the brain, the main neurotransmitter is sympathetic nervous system. And what does sympathetic nervous system do? Well, it's part of a branch coming from the hypothalamus in the brain, which houses the ganglion of the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and the peripheral nerves. Now, what's all that things that you say, well, I don't understand that? Okay, well, in the brain, you have a sympathetic nervous system which activate, gives you energy, gives you bring the organs up in terms of activity, and also the different parts of the body, the brain. And then there's called the other side of it, which is sedates the body, and that's parasympathetic. See, and that's called the autonomic nervous system. And there's a third branch which innervates or stimulates the muscles, and that's called peripheral nervous system. So you got three different types. See? But this one here, acetylcholine, is dedicated to parasympathetic or balancing the body, keeping it calm, especially when you get stressed. And it can control functions of heart rate, digestion, and secretion of saliva, and also bladder function. So we're going to show you some things that you can do. Some of the things that you want to say, okay, well, what kind of supplements do I take? You know, there's all kinds of supplements on the market that deals with neurotransmitters. And one of the main remedy is called choline. And then, so people say, well, how does it kind of balance your body and sedate your body? Well, if you did any biofeedback, or you did different types of brainwave frequencies, the one that kind of sedates you, makes you going to go sleep and calm you down, is called alpha brain waves. And the alpha brain waves can go to 9 to 14 hertz. So you can actually use a computer and with biofeedback and locate the acupuncture point, and then can monitor the status or the frequency of the alpha brain waves. And if it falls between 9 to 14 hertz, you know it's the acetylcholine. And if you're going to balance that out, then you also know that the body starts to kind of get tranquil, can be more sedate. So really important about that. And so people say, where is it located? And we call it the parietal lobes. And the parietal lobes is right in the back of the head, right up here. You can see right here. Okay, right in the back of the head. So you look at the back of the head, it's located right past the peak of your head, and it comes to the side. That's called the parietal. Okay, it's located right in there. And it's associated with the vagus nerve, which regulates the heart, vagus nerve. It's also associated with what we call the sensory nerve. And what is that sensory nerve? There's a nerve that's coming from the brain called motor nerves. And you send the signals from the brain to these motor nerves down into the organs or the nerve pathways. The other one is called sensory, which usually comes out from the periphery or the body and sends signals back to the brain. And that's sensory. And so what you have response from your body, say, for instance, somebody hit you, you feel a response, or your body got pricked by a needle, or things like that. It will send that signal to the brain, and that's called sensory nerve. All right. So we're going to show you that there are other parts to stimulate the brain other than the drug. All right. So once you find it and you stimulate it, it can be stimulated by many methods. If you go to an acupuncturist, he might use electroacupuncture, which can detect what acupuncture point is active or not active. And he uses what is called an electrical point finder. And once you find a point finder, he can see if that acupuncture point in the ear is active or non-active. Okay. Or you can use what the Chinese used to do, is go back centuries. They used to use a stick and punch the ear, probe the ear, and anything that was sensitive to that, they would say, okay, that point is active. You can do it at any part of your body, where if you want to know if the acupuncture points are active or non-active. If you press, even with your acupressure, using your finger and you press down on one side and the acupuncture is there, and you press down the acupuncture point, and you see, oh, kind of sensitive there, and you go to the other side and it's not sensitive. So that side that's sensitive is usually the active point, and it can be related to an organ or a nerve response and so forth. Okay, now, so we're going to show you on the screen where the acupuncture point for the acetylcholine is. And I told you it was a parietal. So usually on the back part of the head. So we're going to point, I'll put the pointer in my fingers here, and you can see the back part of the brain right in here. So it's right up the section right up here. It's the back part of the brain, and you can see two major points here. One is a sensory and one is a motor nerve, which is more active. So you're going to see this point here. You see, if you can do this, you see the point right in here. And that point is the sensory nerve. And then you can see a arrow going down here, and it's in this point here, this blue area here. That's parietal. So that area. So if you get an injury there, or somebody hit you in the back, how many times you lost memory? Huh? Right in this area here. Okay? A lot of concussions, football players that fall in the back or they get concussions, it's usually can be in here, and when they start losing memory. Okay? And they can use the alpha waves, which is in here. You can see the alpha waves in here. You can hardly see it. Let me put this up more. You can see it here. And alpha waves look like this if you look into a biofeedback equipment right in there. You see how the thing is real close and very close knit. An alpha wave 9 to 14 hertz. So you want to get this stable. And so if we put this here. Okay, you want to get it stable because you want to have this signal go from here in the back, and you transfer to the midbrain and to the frontal lobe, which it translates what it's feeling. The frontal lobe gives you intelligence, it gives you direction, action, and it depends on what lobe you're talking about, left lobe or right lobe. And from that, it goes what we call to the hippocampus for memory, and then what experience it can connect with, and then it goes called the hypothalamus and down to the body. Okay, so as you can see right in here, we're going to look right in here, and so that's the midbrain right in here. You see the point here? So he goes to the midbrain, from the back of the lobe to the midbrain, and his acupuncture point right in the center, very important point, because it also governs some sleep habits too. So it's called the mesencephalon or the midbrain. So it goes to the back, connects to here, and then travels to the front, which is here. And you can see right in this area here, and that's the acupuncture point of the thalamus and the hypothalamus. And so let me bring this up here and see it, and you can write in here. Do you see these areas in here? So these points here, so it goes from the back, mid, and then for the front. And then it covers the autonomic nervous system in the hypothalamus, and the peripheral nerves, and the what we call the cerebellum. So how does it relate to? Now, if you go to acupuncture school, you will notice that the parasympathetic right in here, I'll get it white, right in here, and you can see right in this area here. So it stimulates this area in the back part called the pons. It's really a connection from the high part of the brain, brainstem, to the lower, okay, the pons. And it's right in this area here where a lot of people with whiplash, and you go to a chiropractor, they adjust your neck, and they twist your neck, do an adjustment on your neck. It's usually right in this area here, the C1, okay? And he goes here, and so it innervates all the 12 cranial nerves in the brain, and then he takes a break, and he goes all the way down to the bottom here. And you can see right here, you can do the ovaries, the prostate area, and the bladder area. You can see right in here. All the rest of these are by the sympathetic nervous system. Why is it so important that I show you that? Because when I show you that, you will understand why you're getting some symptoms in the ovary system, the brain system, which is the posterior pituitary and anterior pituitary, and you can see where you get behavior changes, things like that. So if you go ahead and find those, you sort of have like a symptoms, and your health practitioner will start to notice some of that, especially chiropractors in C1, which is right on the base of the neck, and then the tail end with a toxic or the sacrum. That means that by the tailbone, you're going to see that. And sometimes you get soreness there, or maybe you got an injury there, or you can't sit well. And this is the area you got to look at, connecting to the brain. Okay. Now, as we go along, this area here, you can see right in here. I'll increase it. Right in this area here. Let me see. Okay, right here, and you're going to find like a big bone. You can put your hand in the back of your head and feel the big bone there. And that could be able to sedate the sympathetic nervous system if it was really hyperactive. All right? And it's in this area here, as you can see, right in this area here, right above the TMJ area. Very important that you understand that. So you get the TMJ area, that can affect the sympathetic nervous system, and then of course that muscles in the jaw area will be tight. Okay, so that's for the acetylcholine, and let me give you some characteristics more. So let's talk about ACH type. So every neurotransmitter has sort of our own personality, see, and then the personality could be left unchecked. A mild to moderate ACTH deficiency can lead to the drop of overall health. And there are warning signs of ACTH, okay, dropping. First tendency is to avoid contact with other people. So you got to see people start getting reclusive, all right? And then people say, wow, that's a sign of early dementia. That's one of the signs. More tension in your relationship may develop differently in managing your schedule. So you're getting sort of disorientated, and you're getting sort of not organized. So you get very, very disorganized, and you can't keep focus. Your problem is you can't concentrate. Your mind swims all over the place, and so it's a lack of concentration. Muscle and bones start to ache, and you can say, well, if you go and just work on the physical symptoms, you might go to a massage therapist, physical therapy, take a swim in a pool, sauna, do a little stretching, and you say, well, that's for my muscle and bones, but they still start to ache, and that's in the brain. So if you're going to do all these physical exercises, you want to balance it out with also balancing out the neurotransmitter in the brain called acetylcholine. Okay? Sex becomes less enjoyable due to vaginal dryness, difficulty with men maintaining erection. So everybody says, well, I got to use a cream. If you're a woman and you say we have dryness in the vaginal area, especially before sex. And of course, if it's dry, you don't feel like it's a pleasure because it's sometimes painful. And you wonder why, and you might put cream here, or put estrogen, or progesterone, or all these different creams that come in there. And it's really, it doesn't work entirely. But what's happening is you're losing acetylcholine in the brain. So you got to balance it out. So talking about different good sexual relationship with your mate or female, you're having a problem because it's dry, and you're having a problem. You got to go to the brain. If you don't have any kind of energy, and you're tired or you're grouchy or things like that, you don't really think about it. In Chinese, it's the brain related to the heart, the affairs of the heart, and from heart down to the urogenital area. All right? So all of you people watching this, tell me, if you don't have the feeling of sexual urge, think about how you're feeling now. Or when you're going through the act, tell me if you still have focus, or your mind swimming someplace else. you're lacking concentration, you're lacking the memory of feeling good. And if you don't do that, then you really don't have a complete sexual enjoyment, because there is something that's causing. And the alpha waves, remember, they're affected, and then they can be in turmoil, and you get you don't have a satisfaction of an actual good sexual relationship. Okay, nutrition to reestablish acetylcholine is vitamin B choline to convert to ACH. Food highs in cholines are egg yolk, not the egg white, egg yolk, meat, liver, whole grain cereal. Add 2 to 3 raw eggs to a fruit smoothie with flaxseed oil ground with vitamin C and E. Add antioxidants like alpha-lipoic acid to protect cell membrane to brain cells from being damaged from toxins. Okay. So those basically are really the basics of ACTH. Okay. Now, if you want to really get more technical about it, we have all kinds of information about that, and we says, what is the sexual disorders? Mainly is Alzheimer's. Okay. Secondly, in the parasympathetic nervous system, it activates skeletal muscle contraction. So you might have that skeletal muscle contraction is in the parasympathetic nervous system, and it decreases contraction in the cardiac muscle fibers. So when you're talking about the cardiac or your cardiovascular problems, and you see the parasympathetic nervous system involved, you got to look at ACTH, okay, or ACH rather, okay. And the autonomic system, he talks about the preganglionic nerve fibers, sympathetic nervous system, sweat glands can be affected, okay. And in the central nervous system, you have a called a plasticity, and it means learning, short-term memory, excitability decreases, arousal, and reward. Okay. So some of these are the ones. So some of the people say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my doctor to give me some drugs. And the drugs can be medications, acetylcholine, can be carbachol, can be pilocarbine, and so forth. Nicotine in smaller dosage, okay? And we have it all broken down here. Right. So now, where are we with this? Okay? What we're saying is, got to look at the brain. You can't just look at the physical properties, okay, your physical ailments. You look at the digestion. Think about acetylcholine, especially ask your patient, or ask yourself, do I have lack of concentration, lack of libido? Do I have a lack of short-term memory, or even long-term memory, in fact? And so when you see all those happening, then you start to see, do I have that? Then you have a biofeedback session if the alpha waves are being distorted, okay, at 9 to 14 hertz. So there's a lot of things to check, and we can check the ear. There's a point in the ear we can check acupuncture points in the ear, and it's usually on the outside skirts, right in this section down here, this quadrant, and let me see, this back quadrant. So this back part of the ear, the back part of the ear is where you got it, right in here, and all the acupuncture points circuits are in that area. And the next thing I'm going to be talking about, which usually goes pretty close hand in hand, is GABA tone. Okay, GABA, they call it GABA, and we're going to talk about that in our next session. So again, now when we talk about that, I'll give you a short lesson. We use these coins, and you're going to say, what is that coins? And the coins merely means we use it without needles and without drugs. We have a technique, and you can put it in a certain acupuncture point, lay it in there. It's needleless, it's non-invasive. So I want you to go ahead and start to, you can look it up onto the internet. There's a lot of information on YouTube's. And we're talking about acetylcholine, ACH. And When you look at that, that's part of the equation of the 5 different neurotransmitters in the brain. So, if you're interested, our show runs on every first and third Wednesday at Channel 52 at 6 p.m. and every Thursday morning at 10 p.m. 10 a.m., sorry, in the morning, 10 a.m. You can look me on the website, Dr. John K. Char, .com. Okay, you can look at that. You can see my website there. And so we look forward to seeing you on the next show, and we'll be talking about the neurotransmitter called gabapentin.